Talk about Gardasil a little bit more. You mentioned that it's been approved for boys. For what?
Well, they look at the little boys as the dirty little carriers of that HPV virus,
Okay.
and that they can deposit that HPV, and a lot